down an interesting hole today. We've got quite a guest for you. This here is Jon. He's been in the underground Nashville music scene for quite some time. Maybe as longer than I have. And he had a band, The Point. You might have heard of them, Alice. They're called Murdered Minority. They made quite a big hit around this town and quite a message. Jon has since gone on to do some great things around. He's got a zine going. He's got a building over here. It's got some art going on in it. You know, got a lot of community type underground, really good from the street things that we've been needing. We need it back. So
doing a lot for the community.
Yeah, doing a lot. So glad you joined us, Alice. Jon, thanks for sitting down with us.
Thank you for meeting me in the alley.
This is a perfect place for a rabbit hole.
Hey, we love our tea parties anywhere.
Yeah. The tea party table isn't really a table, you know. It's a bench in an alley. Really. If you really think about it, you know.
I mean, you know, everything is pretty much a bench in an alley. Between everything else, all tea parties are just a bench in an alley between our day to day.
So, can you kind of, for Alice, give us a rundown of what your zine entails exactly?
The zine is called Salt Weekly. It's a bi-monthly, I guess, irreverent art, punk influenced. There aren't a lot of zines that were still being published, so I felt that there was a niche that could be filled there. Crowdsourcing some interesting creative artwork from people, creative writing. We've had some really interesting submissions. One was there was someone who worked at Cheekwood in the crating department, pretty much about their experience there. And it's one of those situations where sometimes people want to get something off their chest, but we had that inside view. That was an interesting one.
So yeah, you've got like an art. You're presenting artwork and showcasing different artists,
and also different write-ups. But also just having fun with it. The first centerfold was a legally binding contract. It was a non-disclosure agreement, but it was so. I was like, what is sexier than a legal document? I couldn't think of anything, so I was like, that's what. Let's get our sexy centerfold going. So I found a boilerplate template online, and then added in some language so that it would apply in all known dimensions. I asked a lawyer friend about that, and he said typically the judges in this dimension may not have jurisdiction there, but they might rule in your favor if there was any sort of dispute. But that was that was a non-disclosure agreement for a sculpture forest that I have in the woods nearby.
Okay.
So we kind of have fun with that. I showed you that one of the cover art was Santa Claus as a alien zombie.
Yes, beautiful.
And he's telling you to consume.
Yeah. I'd seen that before, and then when I saw it there, I was like, I made that connection, like, oh, I've seen this. Yeah.
Right? It's a pretty fun image. So I think that's because I think part of it was, I was like, there's no alternative press in Nashville anymore.
Right.
So at first we were kind of shooting for the moon, and like, oh, we could be all of that. But then we found out that at least the alternative press here is mostly financed by real estate and restaurant ads, and I'm not really interested in trying to procure those. So I was like, okay, let's maybe rethink.
A lot of some of the magazines and publications here, I'm not naming anything out, ended up getting bought by larger news outlets, and so they completely changed their format, and it's kind of sad, but that's a breath of fresh air, especially.
So I was like, somebody needs to do something. Somebody do something.
Hey.
So I did. So that's been going on for a couple years now. We actually started with an issue 0, then an issue 00 while we got our feet wet. But then it's Salt Weekly, and but it comes out bi-monthly.
Okay.
So I was like, what's if 2 months is a week? Where is that planet? And it's somewhere between Mars and Jupiter. Mars,
shit.
So Mars is your warlike, and then Jupiter is your jovial outlook. So I was like, all right, that's great. What's out there? There's a bunch of space dust out there. So there's like an asteroid belt. So there could have been something there. One might call it space salt. And so then the numerology, if A equals 1, SALT equals 52.
Yo.
So I was like, what the hell?
Hey, what the fuck? Yeah.
So then we set it up so it's a countdown. So we actually started after 0 and 00. We started with issue 52, and we've been counting down.
Wow. Okay.
And so I think we're doing 43 just came out. 43 is about to come out. 42 will be a smoke themed one. 42.0. So we're kind of playing with that numerology.
Nice.
Then 41 will have the same theme as 43 because they're both. If I found out, they're called twin primes. When there's two prime numbers that are two numbers apart. So 41 and 43 are twin primes. So I was like, all right, we'll just recycle whatever we did for 43 into 41. And then issue 40 is going to be, this year will be the Halloween issue. So calling that Over the Hill Halloween. And then keep counting down from there. But now what we've also been pursuing is Salt is going to have we're building a relationship with another independent publishing outlet.
Oh, hey, Das is here. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
So Salt is we're trying to get it'll be a fiscally sponsored relationship with an arts newspaper called Number that it was originally out of Memphis, but now covers the entire state. And they're 501c3, so then we could run donations through them. They'd get a small administrative fee for their troubles, but then we could start accepting larger donations because last year during the pandemic, we organized a mutual aid society where artists donated work and or money if they could, and then we sold that at auction and then used that money to pay other artists to
That's awesome.
commission them to do work.
Right.
And then the work they generate from that
Yeah.
commission will be sold this year at an auction, and so hopefully we can create
It's
a
getting a
fund
ball rolling, man.
that keeps
Yeah.
going because I imagine something like what happened last year with the pandemic, things shutting down, could happen again. Even if it doesn't, it'd be nice to have a fund to tap into in case something bad happens to somebody and you want to help them out.
So,
Alex,
Hey,
can I come
yeah.
in? I'm sorry. I just gotta say it. It's an honor to sit on the bench with you legends.
I feel the same way. I'm surrounded by amazing, talented people, and it shocks me every day the massive talent here.
I met Jon maybe 23 years ago. He helped start Food Not Bombs in downtown Nashville. This guy goes back to the day, and then of course went on to play drums for Murdered Minority. Let's not forget, he's an artist. He's not just a musician, or he does much more than both. He's run for mayor twice.
A couple times.
How'd that work out?
I got more votes the second time around. The first time around, I came in after somebody named Ride-In. I don't know who that person is, but they did pretty well.
Ride-In? That's awesome.
I was dead last, and that might be attributed to the fact that my slogan was "Don't be a fool, don't vote for Sewell."
That's awesome, though.
But my campaign was the chit show: corruption, hypocrisy, influence, and taxes. CHIT. Because I was like, oh, that's pretty easy to remember, and it sounds like something else.
Yeah.
So that was part of my approach, was that I stand for these really bad things, but I'm bad at bad things. So vote for someone else on stage because they will implement the program of corruption, hypocrisy, influence, and taxes.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Damn.
That went over quite a few heads.
Yeah.
I guess
it would.
Creative writing, rhetorical devices don't really work in politics because people want you to be very direct,
blunt, simple. Yeah.
And so I think I brought my own kids, so I had at least some baby to kiss, and all that.
Before we get too off topic, how can Alice and I get a subscription to SALT? How can people do that?
Yeah, we set up a Patreon, but then that was kind of a headache for me to run. We got kind of, there's a heavy burden trying to do all that shit.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to set up a website, do the Instagram, publish it, and just getting it laid out. And then for a while we were doing Rizzo printed covers. So you would have the zine, but then it would have its own work of art. The cover would be wrapped around it again. So then it was like, all right, trying to get the Rizzo print guy, make sure they're done in time. If we were also doing shirts, it's like, God bless.
Well, let me ask you a different question then. How can...
So you got to meet me in the alley, is where I was going. You got to meet me back here at Art Crawls.
Where are we at, man?
We're in the
packing
Alice.
What
We're
is
in
this place?
the
Arts
back
Collective,
alley.
would you say?
I guess you could say that. We're in the back alley behind my building. It's, I guess Google refers to it as an arts center called the Packing Plant. It was, I live a block away, and there was this rundown turd sitting here for years that the roof was caving in, one story. So I wrote a letter to the lady that owned it because I'm a fan of public records. Looked it up, found that she was a widow. This place was a dump. It was costing her money. She was elderly. So I wrote a letter, and I was like, look, I live a block away. I'm really interested in this spot. And this was like 2012 is when we started talking, and she was like, yeah, I don't do anything there. And so then I think I bought it in 2014, and I was at that time I ran a CNC department in a display shop. So at CNC it's computer-based technology, but you work in AutoCAD, you design things, and you program different pieces of equipment to cut wood, plywood typically, or MDF.
Alice, if you know about 3D printers, that's kind of the common thing nowadays. That's based off of CNC.
So CNC,
it's the little arm that does what you can't do for you.
And so I worked in a shop where I ran that, and we cut acrylic, aluminum, dye bond. So a lot of the siding up there is salvaged siding, sign material. So the siding is old sign material that I saved.
Nice.
Upstairs it's pretty much built out with stuff that I squirreled away for over 7 years. So I built out the inside of it, and it took forever. So I don't think we were done building it out until 2019. So it took a second, but upstairs is lots of salvaged floor panels from big auto shows, bamboo countertops,
That's awesome.
Nice plywood, just stuff that I could save and hide in a warehouse until I could put it in the back of my truck and then put it here. So that's why you can't really see it, but there's a blue and white motif to the siding, and that is primarily because there was a lot of drop from a job that had blue and white. So it could have just been something else, but I was like, all right, save those squares.
It looks good though.
And so it's also based off of Tetris themed.
Yeah, you were showing us that.
Windows are designed around Tetris. Those were window frames that I built based on these 2x2 square glass windows that I bought, and those were salvaged. So it took forever to do, but it's I guess you could say it's a living walkable through testament to DIY in the end.
Hell yeah,
because
it is.
It's
seriously, Alice, you got to get out here during the art crawl sometime and check it out.
Really amazing place.
John does an art crawl first Saturday of every month. Is that right?
That's right.
And you do that here
in Wedgwood, Houston. So this is a hub, but then also across the street there's some other galleries such as Zeitgeist, David Lusk Gallery.
Oh, the Zeitgeist moved over there. Okay.
Right. And so we've kind of got this good synergy because they're bigger format.
Right.
They've been around longer, have more established artists. And then happens in my building a lot of times is small project spaces, things that aren't for sale, but are just kind of mid-career or early artists that are testing out their work. There is one commercial gallery inside, channel to channel, but then also inside are art galleries run by the art departments of Lipscomb and Watkins at Belmont. Coop is a artist collective that's inside that's financed by member subscriptions. Unrequited Leisure. Then upstairs is a poetry library, and the architecture firm has a studio. There's a couple architects up there, as well as WXNA's radio station. WXNA is what came after WRVU. So friends and family of WRVU, when WRVU was sold off, they were like, what are we doing? So like, to hell with that, let's make our own radio station. And they were above Grimey's for a while, but now they're upstairs, so that's pretty cool. And I like to tune into WXNA because you never know what you're going to get. A lot of times, like this Friday morning is they'll play early R&B and rock, and they call it unbleached rock and roll, which I really appreciate.
Great show.
Right.
Do it often.
Nashville Jumps, and then lots of punk shows, hip hop, but then lots of old country shows too. So I guess you would call it freeform community formatting.
Very local style, and
And that's how it is here too. That's natural. This is a melting pot,
That's what
Everything just blends together.
That's how we like to keep it.
Nice vintage FUCT t-shirt, sir.
Thank you, sir.
While
Thank you,
we're on
sir.
the subject.
Thank you, sir.
So, how can artists, if they want to submit something for zine or maybe even the art crawl, how can they?
For the art crawl, they'd have to hit up the individual galleries.
Okay.
So kind of, I guess for me, what happened here was I made space for others to do their thing. So I don't curate anything that happens in any of the galleries.
Okay.
I do curate this alley gallery.
Nice.
So that's why we have the wheat pasting wall behind me, because I was like, nobody fucking wheat pastes anymore. So I was like, all right, people need to have a place to practice. So that's what this is. There's a mural over there. Then there's a mural on the other side of the building. So I kind of curate the outside of the building, and then what happens inside is up to the individual galleries.
Well, I mean, to get down any rabbit hole, you got to start outside.
Yeah. And yeah, this is exceptional real estate considering you have a portal to Wonderland right here in this alley. I mean, we just walked back here in this alley and here you were, Alice. It's weird.
But you never know where you're going to find us these days.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are probably more comfortable in the alley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poetically and literally.
Right.
Yeah.
And, well, to that, the poetry library will often they'll have poetry sessions out here. So
nice.
When I was running for mayor, there was an idea kicked to them. I was like, you need to reach out to all the candidates and have them come read a piece of poetry that inspired them as a political candidate. So we had a couple different mayoral candidates, 3 or 4 council at large candidates, and people came out. One guy, older black guy, had a poem that he read just out of his mind. Like he just had it memorized for decades, and so just stood there and did it like spoken word style.
What was your poem?
My poem was I think it was Ferlinghetti. In it he says "damn the money" and "be damned to the money." And so the second time I ran for mayor was it was "damn the money." I was like I hope to raise $0 and spend even less. And
You got the best slogans, man.
I mean,
Run again, I'll vote for you. You'll have Rhetoric
thanks.
Rabbit Hole backing.
But the whole idea is to talk about money and politics. So people are like, well, where can I donate? I was like, please don't. Find a nonprofit that you like and send it to them.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
That's so real.
Yeah. So I came in second to last.
Progress.
Yeah, right? I was like, at this rate, we just need 480 years. I don't know. But,
John, thank you for everything you've done for the community.
thank you.
God bless you.
Yeah, really.
I appreciate that. I know it was not appreciated by quite a few people, but then it was by a lot of others.
I'm
That's
proud
any-
of you, man.
That's anything anyone ever does, right?
Well, and
You're gonna have people that dislike
and I think it was something so unconventional for lots of people
Yeah.
that they're like, "You're wasting everyone's time." I'm like, "Really?" Because this lady that works for him came over and was like, the reason she got into politics was because she saw me run last year. So I would have people come up and tell me these stories where they're like, "I saw you on stage and realized that anyone could do it." I was like, "That's goddamn right.
Yeah.
You do what you want to do and do it your way."
Well, they like they like us to forget that, that anyone, that it's us, Control, or it ought to be us controlling the machine.
Right. Well, yeah. People just they want the. Are they voting for the dude in the blue tie or the red tie?
Yeah.
That's kind of how they break it down. And I was like, and
Well,
so
yeah.
it was a way to try to, because in the end, what I was promoting, but I would kind of do it with a smile and a joke. Decriminalization of sex work, decriminalization of all drugs. That was blowing people's minds. They're like, "You're saying that?"
You're
and I was
preaching,
like, "Yeah,
bro.
I'm saying that."
Hell yes.
And things like free public transport, but what I feel like really the audience wasn't out there sitting facing me. The audience was, because they would hear me say some
Hanging in
wild
the
ass
alley.
shit. The
Yeah.
audience would be next to me. It was John Cooper, the current mayor. It was John Ray Clemens, the state rep. So they hear me say something weird and off the cuff, but then half the crowd applauds, and then they're like, "Oh, this could be a thing I could get behind. Actually, people support that."
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
decriminalization of weed. It's like that. Why is everyone not saying that now?
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
past that, but people are still like, I don't know about that.
No,
What the hell are you talking about?
Mississippi did it before we did.
Right? I was like,
You know?
don't. And then it was like, why not even? So
Yes.
then I was like,
Yeah.
even go the full gamut, because I was
It's-
like,
yeah.
look at Portugal.
That's what I was gonna say.
They decriminalized all of drug use, and like, instead of putting all this money to put people in jail,
Mm-hmm.
what if it went to social workers? And then they found out, they're like, holy shit, we saved money.
Yeah. And then
And it's like, what?
And
Yeah, you
you
save
get
money and
people
lives.
off of hard drugs that they need to not be
Yeah.
on, and
And it's
instead
like
of
prison
that.
is not.
Well,
so,
let's be honest. The only reason that isn't a thing here is money. It's having drug war makes way too much money. It generates too much money for the state and the government for them to ever legalize anything.
Right.
They're losing out on all that shit because they make money on both ends of it. They dip their toes into the crime syndicate,
Well,
and then
one
they bust the
reason-
crime syndicate and make that
One
money
reason
back.
that cannabis in Tennessee is virtually decriminalized because they won't prosecute small amounts anymore is because it's not worth it to them to deal
Yeah.
with, and they're realizing that the taxation that they're getting for CBD and standard sales counters it enough that it's not that big of a deal.
It's almost
Now it's just
they're
has to
almost
get
breaking
around-
even now.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's getting to the point where it's just about getting the last few legislators to get on board, and
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think a few of those I think that there might be a generational shift, so you gotta wait for some people to expire,
Right.
and then it'll
That brings up
it'll
another-
bend a little easier.
Well, that brings up another huge thing that I've always been about is term limiting. If you're going to have to do that, I was joking about 2 weeks.
Nah.
If you can't do shit in 2 weeks, why are you here?
That's a good point.
We'll re-elect you for another 2 weeks if you got something done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, but
Otherwise-
you sat on your ass for 2 weeks, so we're gonna get some other dude in here, not let you sit here for 4 years
Right.
and do nothing.
And then get paid for the rest of your life
Yeah.
off my sweat. So hey,
Yeah. But it was for me. It was getting out, saying something unique in a unique way. Then you get a reaction from the audience seated there, and then
Yeah.
the peoples that I'm sitting next to, because I was like, one of these people's going to be mayor.
Well, that just shows that you
I
care.
don't know who it is, but
Yeah.
you
You actually care about making a difference. You don't care about getting elected necessarily as much as you care about
right.
actually making a change. So, like, if you can change one of these assholes' minds, then you've done.
Well, and I
You've
think a
done
lot of
something
times
good.
it's not that they have an evil point of view; they have an uninformed point of view,
Mm.
Right.
and that's something that I think about. I might be messing it up, but I think Aristotle, that was the view on vice. So a virtuous person, they're like, well, a lot of times people commit vice not because they want to be bad, it's because they don't realize that what's about to happen will also negatively impact them. They don't understand the full ramifications of something. They just want food now, so I, rob somebody.
That's very true. There's maybe,
and so then I was like, all right, then it's an educational thing, but also for people that might be informed on lots of different topics, may not understand. Why would this developer know what Portugal's drug policy is?
Right. It's a difference in ignorance and stupidity. Yeah. People run around saying that these people are stupid for doing this, and it's not that they're stupid. They're ignorant of
the situation,
other information that would change their knowledge. If they were stupid, you could give them all the information in the world,
it wouldn't
and
change
it wouldn't
anything.
change anything. And I mean that's.
Yeah, but they let me on some stages and not on others. So I wrote a poem banned from the forums, and it was just as crass as banned from the Roxy, and I just changed a few things. Nice. But I was like, I'll have a little fun with this, and I think in that way it did impact people, because at least for me I was like, I'm sick of standing in the street with the cardboard sign. If I could get on stage and say it in a more clever way, because I at least in my experience, people don't tend to listen to you if you're yelling at them about how stupid they are. I don't know. Maybe the other one has had luck saying, that like,
depends how loud you're yelling,
right? Here's how smart I am, and here's how stupid you are. And it's like, are you really trying to change their mind?
No, you're just appeasing your own ego is all it is.
Well, and you're playing to people like you. They're like, look at you and be like, hey, they're strong, they're brave, and I was like, I'm not sure that's bravery.
Right. Yeah. No,
get up on stage with some heavy hitters, and then you're really vulnerable. But at least for me, I'd come into that having acted for a couple years before then, so I was already used to the performance, because I was like, that's all this is. I was like, you get someone from Mars, and I'm about to say something very important.
That's a really good point.
I mean, that was brilliant.
No, I mean, like, Alice,
write
that down, Alice.
Did you get that, Alice? I hope you got that.
Yeah.
I certainly would have picked that up. But Ryan sounds like, I was like, this. You get a Martian to come down here, and you show them the theater in ancient Greece, and then you take them to a mayoral forum and ask what the difference is. There's going to be more similarities there than differences. So I was like, it's just theater. You get up there, you recite your rehearsed lines, you wear your costume. Because I was like, Lord knows when you go home, you don't sit around in your suit. Right. So you put on a different costume to do your performance, deliver your lines, hit your bullet points, stay on message.
Well, they call it the political theater.
And so I was like, that's all it is. So it was interesting the first time around, because I'd come out of doing some professional acting for a couple years, but there was another guy running that time that he had for years owned a theater troupe here in Nashville. So I could tell right away, I was like, this dude knows what's up. He knows how to work it. He knows how to deliver his lines.
What was the troupe, if you don't mind me asking?
Amun Ra. And it was AMUNRA. And it was Tennessee's only black-owned theater troupe for 100 years.
Wow.
So there was one in the early 1900s, and his was at the turn of the last century. Really interesting character, Jeff Obafemi Carr, and he's from. He had led some protest at TSU in the 80s over the bad quality that the campus was in at that time. So, but I was like, I could tell right away. I was like, this dude knows what's up. But he was dressed professionally. He was delivering his lines. But I could tell that underneath there was, in a meeting in private, I was like, he's informed by his experience in essentially like the late 70s, early 80s Black Power movement, that had kind of come out of the 60s movement. And so there it was, you think locally, and in this case for him it was at activities at TSU where he was a student. But then looking him up, I was like, straight up, like he had a theater company for a while. It ended up folding, and now he has kind of a community center in North Nashville that they have a podcast room. They have a kind of a presentation congregation space. they have, I guess you would call it meetings on Sunday morning. I think there is a religious aspect to it, but it's also maybe it might be better called humanism, but it also taps into there's like Egyptian iconography, stuff like that. So
John, can I ask you one question, brother?
I don't know, can you?
It'd be okay, Alex.
Yeah, speak up a little bit though.
Did you ever have the honor of sitting in the back of Perkins and listening to Tex Cop chuckle and snort coke?
I don't think so.
Wow.
But
You did, right?
No. I remember Perkins when it was open. Vaguely.
Okay. Okay.
My off the wall question: UFOs. How do you feel about them?
Well, I guess it's all about what are we referring to? Unidentified flying objects.
I guess
there's
let
things
me
out
be
there we haven't
better.
identified.
Let me be. Let me ask. That's a stupid question. You're right. What alien
people from another
interference
planet?
from extraterrestrials off this planet interacting with humans, either in our past or presently?
I would, given that we cannot disprove that there are multiple dimensions out there, I would say then you start getting into the law of large numbers, and certainly in one of those dimensions we've been visited by somebody.
Okay, so that kind of gets into another question because there's two kinds of aliens, right? Well, there's many kinds of aliens depending on how you use that word. But there's extraterrestrial aliens, and then there's interdimensional aliens from off this plane, not off this planet. I think those are two very different questions to me. I think they're different things, and I think they both exist, but they're alien to us in different ways. One isn't in this realm, one isn't on this planet.
Alex, are you writing off the possibility that they may be time travelers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a possibility. I don't know what that would mean, I guess.
I always found when it comes to the idea of time travel, when you add that in, that's a different argument that has.
I'm not sure what time traveling means, right?
Well, time travel has more science to dispute it than dimensional and alien or extraterrestrial things, because the idea of time travel, even in physics, can be gone forward with shift time, but the idea that you can go back is very hard to conceive in physics because things have already occurred.
So, if I'm hearing you right, John, you're saying odds are we would inevitably, in one iteration of humanity, have encountered aliens at some point in time. So, I guess let me narrow it down a little bit. Do you think this iteration of humanity, do you think we've ever been in contact with something extraterrestrial intelligent life?
Why not?
Yeah. I mean,
with that
who
kind
knows,
of possibility,
right?
You get a big enough possibility, it turns out probability.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, right? You just need one of, and then the bigger the number, then it's easier to get one out of those.
Right.
So, what about interdimensional, like a spirit or a ghost or something that is here but you can't see it? I don't know. Like, there's so many different words and terminology for it, but an alien of another dimension.
Well, energy doesn't go away, right?
No destruction of energy.
Right.
It just changes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a pretty good answer. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess, do you think that interacts with people that are alive at all?
Well, certainly. I was thinking about this the other day because I was sitting underneath. I have a cherry tree in my yard, and suddenly there was like this rush of cold air, and that's the thing. The awesome thing about all this vegetation is not only does it provides shade, the canopy provides shade, but also it's breathing out to us. So there's actually a term for it. I was asking an architect because it's not just coming out here with a thermometer. I guess there's also, is it called a bulb? It measures like moisture, how it feels.
Oh, there's a barometric pressure, and there's a lot of different.
But there's measurements that are like what temperature it doesn't pick up what the wind feels like. So
Right.
then they modify it like, all right, the feels like temperature today is
It's
so
like ambient.
because they have to keep adding variables. But so then I was thinking about that because there was this cold air coming off the tree as it was like I felt it breathe back on me, and I was like reflecting on, I don't know, growing up, did you guys? It was always if you walk through a cold spot, that's where a spirit is. Old people used to say that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, they're probably not wrong because there's going to be something
Residue.
There's going to be
something, something that changed it has got to be there.
because what's in the cherry tree, it's pulling nutrients from the soil. That soil also could have been where someone died. I know it's where some animals have definitely died. So it's pulling all that, and then it's distributing it. So maybe that's
Goes back
one
to
answer.
Eventually,
That's a great
and
answer.
everything is our stardust. Made of the same
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Um,
Like that. When they talk about DNA knowledge, we all have that ancient knowledge in there, and it's not in our brain; it's in our DNA.
Right, I was thinking about that the other day about nature has a really interesting way to convey information.
Mhm.
At least in mammals, it's spermatozoa and egg, and I was like, it's kind of the best thing because I was like, we try to put information on a wax cylinder, those break. We put it on a record. We were talking about records earlier. Those break. CDs will get scratched.
Right.
But I was like, this like gelatinous ooze, I was like, it's the perfect storage device for information.
Yeah.
I was like, that's fucking brilliant.
And
I was like,
it's
the
containing
fact-
trillions of those files. So like even if
brain.
one of them gets through, you don't even need all of them.
And so I was like,
Yeah.
that's amazing because what's in there is also what we've learned from what do they call that field? Epigenetics. So it's not just genetics, but your genes are altered by the experiences that they go through.
Oh,
so
crazy.
Like how we made dogs. They were wolves, and our domestication actually genetically altered them into
Yeah.
canines.
And your genes could be affected by if your ancestors went through a certain crisis or a pandemic, then there might be like, I guess there's some sort of vestigial trauma like stored in there too that could be turned on and off based on environmental conditions. So
That's
then
a
you're
lot
like,
of-
holy shit,
Yeah.
it is nature and nurture.
Are you a determinist? Do you believe in free will?
Okay.
So
like
I guess
predestination.
well, more like every action we take is a result of the variables around us, your environment. So like in the sense that like
you could predict what someone's going to do if you knew all the variables.
if you knew
that
all
goes into
like
it.
we can't because we're human, but if you had all the variables, you could.
There is one unique synthesis. There was I think the story is Smith is going to a conference in Chicago, and he lives in Cleveland. A storm happens, something else happens, so he can't fly there. He can't drive there, but the train goes. Anyway, his friends meet him. He doesn't call ahead or anything. His friends meet him at the train station. And he's like, how did you guys know to meet me here? This is crazy. They're like, well, we knew you couldn't fly. We knew you couldn't get here by car. So the only way, if you were coming, would have been by train. And this was the only train during this time. So then it gets into the question is, did Smith have free will or not?
Right, that is the question.
Because then it's like, well, because they're at the train station waiting for him. They knew what was going to happen. Smith, that was the only way for Smith to make it happen. So then it's like, okay,
that is a really
he had free will, but he also had to choose. He only had these options to choose.
That is
from.
a great analogy, but it expands out so much further than that, because even if he could have gotten on a plane or a car, he chose to get on a train, and whatever led him to that decision to get on a train might not have been free will. It might have been a suggestion someone gave to him. So
his decision to go there in the first place wasn't his own.
So right, but you have to take it all the way back. So like,
that's going as far back as you go. His initial decision to
you got to take it back to like your parents' DNA.
Right.
Like it's not only your environment, like around you, like the world you're in. It's also like your parents are bringing in their own unique genetics to you. So like you are a result of those genetics and your environment. If he got raised
to be a lazy ass, he would have been like, "Fuck this thing! I'm not going to go on this trip anyway." But his own personal convictions made him decide, "I'm not going to cancel this trip."
Yeah. What I think's interesting,
I'm going to get there however I can, and because of that, then we get to the lack of free will because he had to take the train.
Exactly. So what's interesting about ideas like that is, I find things like determinism completely irrefutable. Like I can't argue with that. Like I can't make a good argument. No, I do have free will. Like, but that being said, even determinists will act as though they do have free will, right? Because every day we interact with the world as if we do have free will. Right. So even if that is true, it doesn't matter.
One article where I think it was a determinist, but he said ethically, it's easier for us just to say we have free will.
Yes.
Because it was like the alternative might be quite heavy for some people.
Yes.
Well, I mean, because then you're taking morality out of a lot of things.
Totally.
Saying,
we're like,
well, that dude, look, man, you can't be mad at him for murdering all those people.
Exactly.
Because
he was destined
to do it.
He was the result of his life.
And
so
that's totally
it makes people more empathetic, but it also can make like bad people
get away with. That was the other thing. It was like, well, because we do recognize now that certain conditions put people in certain minds where if you're hungry and you don't have money, then if you get food, it has to be by taking it.
Well, you'll become an animal to eat.
And now
so we're like,
especially in society, we've begun to, especially these days, we've begun to almost start trying to draw lines for the excuse. You know, where it's like, well, this crime got committed, so we need to look at everything objectively and with nuance. So, but the problem comes in there is, it's like a defense lawyer tactic. Well, my client didn't really have a choice in doing that. He was forced into these situations, you know, and so when we start running into, we're seeing this a lot in society now with cancel culture with, well, we're going to decide to let that apply here, but we're not going to decide to let that apply here.
Well, and that's the thing, just even if we are the result of variables and we're not responsible for our own actions, we still have to have consequences, otherwise people will do bad things.
I'd say the one thing about trying to figure out what people are going to do, I read recently about, I guess it's called the 3-body problem. It's like we'll never be able to predict what can happen. You would need they still can't figure out if you have two things swirling in space. They could figure out based on mass, size, spinning, rotation. They could kind of predict what those two bodies will do as they. But then if you add a third one, as it gets closer, it throws the other two off, and so then. Some element of chaos theory then gets applied, where they're like, we're still trying to figure out, like, we can't.
If you observe something, it's different than if you don't observe it, and that gets into quantum physics, you know. And
the world's a weird place, and scientists are understanding that it's weirder than we previously thought, not simpler. It's like we keep opening up doors that give us more questions.
Any answer that is a single variable answer probably will not age well.
Yeah.
Well, that's all about the idea. Like a science denier is a scientist.
Yeah.
Because science inevitably
is challenging.
Yeah,
challenges
itself. You know, and that's what
science is really a method.
Are you a science denier? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess I'm a scientist. You know.
That's what it is. You're constantly like sharpening that thing.
You gotta, this theory got proven, so I gotta either prove it more or disprove it. You can't prove it anymore. You just try to disprove it. Once it gets disproven, then it's no longer a theory.
Well, that's why a lot of people aren't actually scientists, is because they're not willing to challenge their own ideas. Like, no, you have to take the idea that you like, or you're supposed to remove any kind of like feeling about from it. But like the idea that you have, you need to put it under as much scrutiny and try and break it apart as much as you can and see if it holds up to it.
Yeah, another article I read recently was it was essentially saying, come up with your idea, and then the most critical thinkers then think of what's the opposite of it. or
Right.
then try to make an argument for the other side.
Right.
Yeah,
Even if
steelman.
you don't believe in it, you try to. You're like, well, what if there's
It's like researching against your belief.
Mhm.
Start
and you're-
looking. Don't get on Google and look up what you believe.
In
Look
yeah,
up what you believe being debunked.
in debate they call that steelmanning an argument, like propping up your opponent's argument.
Rather than straw manning.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really where like, yeah, I wish more critical theory was applied that way.
Well, that's because that's actually that's two people trying to actually reach the truth and discover their differences and work
Or
past
that's
them.
what I'm saying. It could be one person, and
Yeah.
you're talking to yourself. You're like, son of a bitch. Well,
Yeah.
if that were wrong, what happens then?
But I think a lot of the problem is people want to play gotcha. They want to win. But you don't.
Comes
Losing a debate, losing an argument is better than winning, because you have been corrected. You
Right.
were previously mistaken, and now you have been corrected in a good way. So like
Right.
you won really by losing an argument.
You win
If
the
you win an
knowledge.
argument, you're not losing either. It's just you're helping someone else.
Right.
And that's people
Potentially.
miss that.
Potentially because that other person may or may not take it, even if
Right.
you win it.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like you're saying, if you lose it, you've learned.
Mhm.
It's often why I ask people the questions I ask. It's not because I don't know what my answer. People will return with, well, what do you think? And I'm like, I know what I think. I want to know what
Yeah.
y'all think. I want to throw it all against the wall together. That's how you start discussion.
John, another really random question for you. Do you have any ideas or preconceptions about what happens after we die?
Well, energy doesn't go away, right?
Okay.
So it goes somewhere.
Yeah, and that's really yeah.
What are they? I mean, so in effect, you do come back, but I don't know if 1-to-1 what's inside of you comes back inside of anything else. There's probably some sort of distribution, just like we're the sum of our sub-assemblies inside of us, informed by the different people. That we go away, and then that gets passed on.
Yeah, no, just kind of like you die and you're kind of distributed throughout the universe,
I feel like
probably
that.
evenly eventually. That makes sense to me. Yeah, and that's
So then when it's like, well, eternal recurrence, transmigration of souls, like in effect, that still occurs, but it may not be this singularity. Continues to be a singularity. It might be that this singularity, in its most, continues on, but then parts of it gets shaved off and goes somewhere else, and is part of something else.
Yeah, it's like a lot like anyone I've talked to or have heard like stories online, like trip reports and stuff, people who've done like ayahuasca or DMT, and talking from personal experience as well. Anyone who's done this is like, well, not everyone, let me not speak for everybody, but most of what I've seen is this awareness that we all are the same consciousness, the same entity that split itself into many, many forms. So,
Well, I mean, I think that might even be at the universe level now, because they've seen that the universe acts like a giant brain. It's really
physics,
what?
like looks like it. Yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah,
And the way things react are like, son of a bitch, that looks quite similar
That's
to
crazy.
our concept of like synaptical pathways. So it's like, oh,
Well, I mean, it makes sense. Physics makes sense because it is itself. It's people. Things find the easiest path. Electricity finds its easiest way to ground. Water flows down. Everything goes. Creatures shape themselves through time to adapt because it was the easier method to survive, to get on. So it just makes perfect sense that nature is just going to take its easiest path of nature, its most natural path. And I think that universal consciousness, it also goes back to, think about like, it's it's very surfaced on the level of, think about what we already know. Look at ants. Ants literally are a collective consciousness, and it is almost unexplained, and we almost can't, there's really no way.
Can't wrap your head around it.
We can't really, we can say they use scent trails, and they communicate in this way, but we don't know how it is that they
To be
all
like that.
actually are a hive mentality.
Oh, okay. I hear you.
You know, bees do the same thing. They communicate, but there's more communication going on that we don't see and we can't pick up on, because they do what they do collectively as a unit perfectly. They're so efficient, it's just insane. You know,
Well, the
and I mean,
dance of the bees,
Right.
where they're like, here's how to get somewhere, and they do all this jumping around. So
Right.
it's like, holy shit!
Have you guys?
That was directions to get to that
right, and
those
it's-
bunch of flowers over there.
You know, and it's-
that bee jumping around.
And it's how does that translate? We've got these massive methods of communication, and then we just see that go on, but somehow that's all that thing needed to know, and that's the collective consciousness. I mean, ants are amazing with that.
They are
I mean, you just
amazing.
watch
I
them.
love how if you watch them go, I was telling my daughter, I was like, they never, they never have they never really have traffic accidents.
Right.
Like they all walk at the same pace, and you rarely see one try to walk ahead of the other.
Right.
Because it's almost like blood going through your veins, like like one's not trying to get, it's all like pumping through, like, and there's one, and I was like, effectively then you're saying that each individual one does not have an ego.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
It's all a collective task.
Right.
And it's not even for the queen, because the queen is just doing her task by reproducing. And it is the true hive mentality where your collective isn't even for itself. It's for the collective. It's
They
not
literally-
even for the individual. It's
Yeah.
not about their lives. It's about the hive life, which is so weird because the hive isn't a life. It is a bunch of lives, which they're not about. They sacrifice, it's, one of those. And
That had me thinking about like distributed brains. I was like, that's such a crazy concept to me. Like, isn't it like jellyfish? There's creatures
throughout
that-
their body.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's like not a central processing
Or like multiple
area.
brains.
yeah,
It's crazy
there's
too.
different areas that,
What were you gonna say?
Oh, have you guys seen a video of what happens when ants lose their way following each other?
Oh, you're talking about the death pits?
The death pit where they
Oh, man.
they're just swarms.
Yeah, have you guys seen
just
this?
going around in a circle. They lose when one loses the trail. The ones behind it will just start following it, and that one in the front that loses its trail will just start going around. They'll start going around in a circle, and they'll just follow each other until they all die. They'll never go back to the hive, and that's
That's
kind of weird.
crazy.
There's like some cross signals, and they
They
just.
won't. Yeah.
That makes me
A lot
wary
a
of
lot
that.
Of times,
Oh, that's an ad.
well,
Look at that pizza.
Oh, wow. Look. Oh well, no.
Well,
Look at that.
you can't.
Okay.
They're just
Oh
going
my
in a
goodness.
circle.
They don't know.
There's
That's
just some kind
like,
of cross signal, and they
That's
just.
like a ceremony.
It is very ritualistic. Can you see that, Neve?
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Oh, the other
So-
thing is they found that ants count steps. They attached. This is not a joke. They attached essentially stilts. They got some big ants and made their legs longer.
Right.
So, whereas their normal steps, it took 5 to get to this thing that they're trying to get to. They would still take the 5 steps, but they'd be past the thing, and then they're confused.
Oh,
So-
weird.
Oh,
So
wow.
they
Oh,
still
they
take.
adjust them after
Oh,
they
shit.
hit.
That's
they went,
insane.
They
They're
went
like
back
it's
down
from
the
it's
trail.
5
and-
steps to the thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they're like, oh, wait, I did my 5 steps. Where's the thing? But they passed it because it's like
So it's not even like observational data. It's like ingrained
It's
instructions.
It's the
Right.
collective. It's a collective consciousness.
It's
an amazing
maybe just
thing. They're
like a
following-
muscle, just
They know
goes.
that they follow a scent trail, but all this other information that they're getting, where to take this food. I mean, they have in their colonies. They have a place for waste. They have
That's
a place
pretty
for
crazy.
dead and discarded things. They have a trash pit in their colonies. It's really an amazing thing. They will war with each other. Some ants will adapt, and they will take the larva of the other, and then you'll see multiple types in a colony.
Yo.
If you ever see multiple types running in a line, that's what they've done. They've taken over another colony.
Oh my God.
But they will destroy. They are vicious. Absolutely efficient.
David showed me a video of an ant just yeeting another ant off a table. It's like,
It was so funny.
Oh, was that you showed me that?
No, he showed it to both of us, but it was great.
Yeah.
He like
no,
picked
the
him
ant's
up.
kicking and screaming, and he just like throws him off the edge.
Yep.
I've
Deliberate.
watched them, take each other's heads off like that. I see another colony.
It's
They
crazy.
walk up, and the minute they realize this is another ant, or I don't know you, snip.
You're not my tribe. Get out of here.
Lie. They snip them off. Kill 'em.
You know, it's only recently that people aren't like that. Our history is super bloody and tribal.
And really, I mean, it's.
I guess we're still like that.
Yeah,
Like,
people-
yeah.
Because you're like, oh, I'm a part
Especially
of this tribe, so instead of banging on my shield with a staff, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do it in
Keyboard
140
warrior.
Right.
characters.
And
Yeah.
instead of running into your village and murdering everybody, I'm going to call up your work and tell them that you're this,
Yeah.
this, and get you fired.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's the same concept, except you kind of wonder what's got a little more honor to it.
But talking about ant life, now I do need to go be a worker ant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Someone at my house.
we're getting that time. Well, thank you, John. Thank you so much for doing
Awesome.
this.
I hope we were educational, Alice. Informative.
Something like that. Yeah.
Come back here to the alley and reflect on
Yeah.
what we learned here today.
John, is there
Take a
anything you want to plug, let Alice know about, or any links you want to give her? I can put them in the link description if you just want to shoot them to me.
Okay.
Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, the zine is Salt Weekly. The building is the packing plant. I guess Murder Minority has the 10-inch and an LP coming out.
Yeah.
Fuck yes.
You know,
Well,
we're keeping it in there.
yeah.
Guys like John.
Well,
are
along
helping us
those
do it.
lines, I guess, is also the Nashville Underground Music Archive. If anyone checks this out, then you can shoot them a link. It's kind of being beta tested right now, but a place to kind of store some of these memories because it's
Okay.
there's not a lot out there.
I'll get some links for Alice to look at down below. Like,
Absolutely.
just scroll down. Cool. All right, gentlemen. This has been fun. Let's all have a great rest of the day.
Alice. Good
Salute.
One robbery, one burglary. You know, do I respect you more if you put a gun in my face and take my money and tell me that's what you're doing, or if you just creep into my home when I'm not there and steal?
Like the difference between a wolf and a fox.
Right, exactly. I know what a wolf's gonna do.
A wolf will stare you down. A fox is
Video
cunning.
would be great for the next election.
They were like, "What's happening back
And
there?"
Yo.
so Alice, we hope that we can get your vote. You
It's
know,
like,
Right.
yeah, I don't know, man. You did that one interview, and you guys were talking about like aliens, and
ant logic.
yeah, it got weird. I don't know, man.